Hi, I'm Wilson Curry. We're back again. Welcome to my world. And today is going to be sort of interesting. It's about another iconic firearm. If firearms aren't your thing, we understand. If they are, stay with me while we talk about one of the most iconic and most recognized firearms of all time. Not only recognized, but probably one of the most collectible wartime firearms of all time, the Model P08. Now everybody's seeing this right now and they're going, well, that's what? That's a Luger. That's a German Luger. Well, yeah, it is a Luger, and I'll tell you why it's called a Luger, but it's also the Model P08 in 9mm. We'll get a good look at that if you can, Adam. I'll try not to aim that at myself. What we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you just a little quick history on these, and then we're going to look at them and discuss really what the collector value of these firearms can be. So back in the late 19th century, there was a fellow named Hugo Borchardt. There was also a gentleman named Maxim, which had a little bit to do with it as well. And then there was a gentleman named Luger, George Luger. But Maxim, how this attributes into it, he came up with the invention of this toggle lock action for the dreaded machine gun for World War I. But Borchardt also picked up on this, and he came up with a firearm of his own type that also had a toggle lock action, which we're going to show you on this particular firearm. But Borchardt's firearm was a little bit more complicated. And there's your toggle lock action. That's a very complicated semi-automatic pistol. However, the one preceding this by Borchardt, which we should be so fortunate to have one of those here, was far more complicated, considerably longer, a straight grip, and so on. George Luger, who was a friend of Borchardt's, who lived right down the road from him, they both worked for DWM, also known as Deutsche Werk Munitionsfabrik. DWM were the first manufacturers of the coveted Model P08 Luger, and these guys were buddies and lived together. But George Luger took Borchardt's ideas and he turned it into this. But that's a little bit about the history of it. But what Wilson's World is about really are the values. And when it comes to collecting firearms, particularly military handguns, this is the pinnacle of military handguns. These were made by nearly 20 different manufacturers, and the variations of this firearm, I don't even know. I don't even know how many variations. Countless variations by multiple manufacturers over a period of time from right around 1900, 1903. And the first one in this style being introduced to the Navy actually was in 1903. The German Navy first picked up them. Shortly thereafter, in 1908, it was released and used by the German Army for preceding World War I through World War I and all the way up to 1942 in World War II. Very well made, very beautifully manufactured, and very, very highly priced war trophy in both wars. I think more so in the Second World War than the First World War. But let's talk just a second about the values now that we've established there are more variations of this particular handgun than any other handgun known to man. But what we've seen from years past is the continuing rise in value of the Model P08, aka the German Luger, going back 30 or 40 years when something like this may have been sold on the marketplace at around $325, $350, and then as time went on it has grown. Now today, entry level, and we'll get the marks on this one too, Adam. This is a 42 with a 19, if you can see that all right, with a 1939 chamber date. This particular one was made by the Mauser Company. Very much a Second World War firearm, showing the Waffen proofs along the side here, along the side of the frame. And so, that being said, here's your manual thumb safety. Here's a little more information here. So what we're talking about is the world of collecting Lugers a little bit today, and we're fortunate enough to have two of them here because I don't hold on to these for very long. We sell them very easily and very quickly, and they bring good money. So entry level today in most of these, and this is firearms only. We also have a couple holsters here and a couple other things I'm going to show you as well, but Entry level today, pretty much, if it was not in the greatest condition, you might be able to buy one of these handguns today on the marketplace for $500, $600, or $700, but very rarely will you be able to do so. Most of these guns today start at $1,000 and work their way up. Some can sell as much as $25,000 and $30,000, and that has to do with the rarity and once again condition, because condition is everything. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about, particularly in firearms when you're buying or selling or starting to collect, is condition is everything. You don't want firearms to be rusted, you don't want them to be pitted if you can help it. You want the mechanicals to be in working order, and you want the gun for the most part to be original. Now, we don't have enough time necessarily in these segments to go through one of these, but in the case of the Model P08, you'll see numbers. You'll see those second two digits of the serial number. This particular firearm serial number, I guess I should have done this before we started, is 4,842. So everywhere else, every other part on this firearm, you're going to pick up that 42. You're going to see it on the safety. You're going to see it on the toggle. You're going to see it right here on, if you can, on the rear of the toggle, right there. And you'll see it on every other part in this firearm, but in most cases you won't see it on the bottom of the magazine. Frequently the magazines original to the firearms were lost, and that has some bearing on the value, though not a great deal of bearing on the value. You'll notice that this one still retains nearly 90% or more of its original blue. It still has the original checkered stocks on it, and even the stocks are numbered to the firearm. However, in the case of this one, you'll see that the number on the bottom of the magazine does not match the gun, so therefore this one is not all matching, but it's all matching with the exception of the magazine. I took a look just last night online to see how things were going with these days, and it's quite the spectrum. Some people ask too much and they never sell them. Some people put them online, auction them off at no reserve, and currently I saw one of these last night, currently selling at around $1,500, no holster, basically about the same condition as this one. So a 42 with a chamber date of 1939, manufactured by Mauser. You should be able to buy this firearm anywhere from $1,100 or $1,200 up to as much as $2,000. Keep in mind that a holster can add another $200 or $300 to the value of any Luger that it matches up with. These are kind of hard to find also. We just happen to have one with this. This one that I'm going to show you next is an S42. This one's called an S42, and this has a chamber date of 1938. That same Luger complicated toggle link action. And in the case of this particular firearm, we're very pleased to show you this one, is that every number on the firearm matches, including the magazine. The magazine is also numbered to this firearm, so can you imagine, since World War II, having this still remain together? But here it is. The bluing is exceptional on this. There's the slightest bit of holster wear on the trigger plate, a little bit of muzzle edge silvering, but every other component of the firearm is in extraordinary condition. So this one being an S42, also made by Mauser, and by the also, it should be noted that basically both of these firearms were made at around the same time by the same company. But what the Germans did World War II-wise is they put certain codes on some of these guns, because what they were doing prior to World War II, way prior, 1933, 34, and so on, is that they were finding a way to circumvent the Treaty of Versailles, which limited them to what they could make in firearms. So they gave them various codes to try and cover up what they were up to. We know where that went. But every once in a while a mustached lunatic shows up in the world and is easily dispatched. But this is all matching. This is an S42 made by Mauser, including the magazine, and we would value this firearm today at around $1,800 plus or minus. Once again, it depends on what part of the country you're in. It's one of the more commonly found firearms, but condition is everything. If you reduce the condition of this firearm, maybe with worn bluing, pitting, or any other things, mismatched part, you can cut the value of one of these in half. That's in my world. And to close out, to show you what can really bring one of these up into the upper echelon, we have this handy item, which you don't turn up too often, in the form of the shoulder that was interesting, wasn't it, Adam? In the form, how we use these sophisticated lights here at the museum, so pay no attention to the lightning bolt. Here's the shoulder stock. Then I'll come around on this side. I'm a lefty, so you know you have to bear with me on that. But this took a Model P08, aka the German Luger, and turned it into a sort of a carbine. Now, mind you, the magazine on this firearm holds 8 rounds, and you could go through that quickly. However, a few years back when we found this one being from our collection, we also found and bought with it, still packed in this cardboard box with a stamp on it dated 1960, we found something here to sort of open things up a little bit. Not only in this box is contained the loading tool, which I'll place there for now, but also what will now transform this into a completely different firearm is what's known as a snail drum magazine. And here this lies here, and I'm going to insert it in it so you get the whole package. This is the loading tool for loading up that magazine, because in the case where the original magazine, which we'll pull out now, held 8 rounds, this one, this even has the cover with it. And wait till I tell you about this. So here is a snail drum magazine. You'd wind, you'd load with a loading tool. This would hold 32 rounds. Insert into the P08 like that. And now what you have is a German Luger with a snail drum magazine and a shoulder stock. I suppose if you're going into battle, this might be the way to have one. A very good find. So as we've mentioned on this one, the firearm itself have a value upwards of $1,500 to $2,000. What's most interesting is the snail drum magazine, which I'll pull out at this time, and loader alone have a value of $1,800. This is an original 32 round snail drum magazine and loader in the box that it was shipped in from 1960. So there's a little bit about the coveted Model P08, one of the most sought-after wartime trophies of all time, also known as the Luger, named after George Luger, which I think he was very pleased about. But when collecting these or seeking these out, know that they were made by manufacturers numbering almost 20 manufacturers and variations probably approaching 100. They are one of the most unique firearms of all time and one of the most worthwhile investment firearms that I've seen in the last 25 years. The Model P08. I'm glad to have a couple here to show you today. Watch future episodes. We've got a lot more interesting and historic firearms in future episodes.